There's something quietly powerful about the moment someone chooses to return to a part of their life they once set aside. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, and yet it carries a depth that touches anyone who has ever paused, reset, and tried again. That's exactly where Yuhi's story begins. After spending a long period focused on her personal life, handling responsibilities that kept her away from work, she realizes how much she misses the feeling of being useful, of showing up for others. And when she finally decides to come back, she doesn't choose something easy or glamorous. She chooses something meaningful. Yuhi steps into a peaceful suburban village, a place where time seems to slow down just enough for people to notice one another. The villagers are friendly, gentle, and warm, but many of the elderly residents face quiet emotional challenges that don't always have simple solutions. Some feel lonely. Some are learning to adapt to slower days. Others simply need someone who sees them not as a responsibility, but as a human being with stories, memories, and value. And that is exactly where Yuhi feels called to be. She volunteers as a companion and emotional support assistant for the elderly in the community. It's not a medical position, and it's not a job that requires grand gestures. Instead, it's something softer, and perhaps even more essential. She listens. She encourages. She helps them reconnect with simple joys. She reminds them that they are still part of the world around them. And even though she begins this role with genuine intention, there's no denying the bit of nervousness she carries with her. After all, returning to work after a long break is never easy, especially when the work involves stepping into people's lives with care and responsibility. But that small nervousness doesn't stop her. In fact, it becomes a quiet source of strength for her. She knows she's starting again, and she embraces it with humility. When she first walks through the village, she takes her time observing everything. The calm streets, the wooden benches under the old trees, the soft chatter between neighbors, all of it feels like a reminder that community thrives when people choose to show up for one another. And Yuhi wants to be part of that. As she begins meeting the elderly residents, she learns quickly that each person carries a unique emotional world. Some are incredibly cheerful, eager for company. Others are more reserved, taking time to warm up. But Yuhi doesn't rush. She understands that trust grows through consistency, not speed. So she brings something simple but powerful with her every day: her smile. Not a forced smile or a polite one, but a genuine expression that reflects warmth and respect. And slowly, something beautiful begins to happen. Even though she hasn't known them for long, the elderly villagers start responding to her presence. A little more laughter appears in conversations. A little more hope shows up in their eyes. Yuhi isn't changing their lives in dramatic ways. She's enriching them in small, meaningful steps. And that is the essence of her journey. Rediscovering her purpose by helping others feel seen, supported, and valued. What makes Yuhi's return so captivating is that her excitement doesn't come from dramatic events or grand achievements. Instead, it comes from the slow but steady unfolding of small, meaningful moments that remind her why she chose this path in the first place. Every morning, she wakes up earlier than she used to, not because she has to, but because she wants to. The quiet rhythm of the village, the soft glow of sunlight slipping through the windows, even the sound of distant conversations, everything seems to energize her in ways she didn't expect. And as she becomes more familiar with the residents, Yuhi begins to notice the little habits that make them who they are. There's the elderly woman who waters her garden at the exact same time every day, humming softly as she tends to the flowers. There's the retired teacher who always sits by the community center, greeting anyone who walks by with a warm nod. And then there's the gentleman who loves telling stories that may not always be perfectly accurate, but are always entertaining. These small interactions light something inside Yuhi. She isn't just assisting them, she's learning from them. Their patience, their simplicity, their appreciation for everyday life, these qualities remind her of something she once overlooked. That joy doesn't come from how fast life moves, but from how deeply we experience each moment. The more time she spends in the village, the more she finds herself smiling without even realizing it. Her sessions with the elderly are gentle and uplifting. Sometimes they take slow walks through the village path, stopping to admire the changing leaves or the subtle scent of the breeze. Sometimes they gather to share their thoughts or memories, not in a formal meeting, but in a relaxed, friendly conversation. Yuhi encourages each person to express themselves, not because she has answers, but because she understands how important it is to be heard. And every time she listens, she feels more connected to them and to herself. What surprises her most is how these interactions also help her heal from the stress and pressure of her own past. She begins to let go of the heaviness she carried for so long, without forcing anything. By focusing on others, she finds clarity. By giving, she receives. And it's in these quiet victories that her confidence begins to grow. People wave to her more often, some even calling her name with fond familiarity. They see her not as a visitor, but as someone who belongs. And Yuhi feels that sense of belonging settle gently into her heart. She didn't come here for recognition, but knowing she contributes to the well-being of others fills her with a sense of purpose she had long forgotten. One of the most exciting things about her journey is watching how one simple act of kindness can ripple from person to person. When the elderly feel more engaged and uplifted, their families feel reassured. When Yuhi supports them with patience and positivity, they, in turn, treat themselves more gently. It becomes a cycle of emotional renewal, one that starts with the smallest gestures but grows into something meaningful. Through all of this, Yuhi discovers a renewed appreciation for human connection. She sees how even the quietest efforts can brighten someone's day. And in recognizing that, she experiences a renewed excitement for her work, not because it's easy, but because it matters. She begins to understand that meaningful work is not without its emotional challenges. The elderly residents she supports each carry their own inner world, beautiful, rich, and full of memory, but sometimes fragile. And because she cares so deeply, she feels these delicate moments with sincerity. Nothing dramatic or overwhelming happens, but even gentle tension can teach powerful lessons. Yet, even small emotional hurdles can feel heavy when faced alone. Yuhi listens quietly, offering comfort not through solutions, but through empathy. Moments like these show Yuhi the quiet reality of emotional care. It's not about fixing problems. It's about walking alongside someone while they find their own strength. And this understanding becomes one of the most meaningful turning points of her journey. These experiences remind her that emotional care requires patience. Not everyone opens up right away. Not everyone expresses their needs clearly. And sometimes, showing up consistently is the most important thing one can do. Even when the path feels uncertain, she learns to trust the process and trust the people she supports. Sometimes, these gentle challenges take a toll on Yuhi's confidence. She begins to wonder whether she is truly helping. She worries that her quiet approach may not be enough. And because she's human, these thoughts linger in her mind longer than she expects. For a moment, she feels the same uncertainty she felt when she first arrived in the village. Yet this time, she understands something she didn't understand before. Uncertainty isn't a sign of weakness. It's a reminder to stay grounded, compassionate, and humble. Gradually, she sees that her presence has brought more warmth to the community than she had realized. The elderly residents begin seeking her company more actively. Their conversations grow deeper. Their smiles come more naturally. And Yuhi starts to recognize that what she offers is not perfection, it's connection. And connection, even in its simplest form, can bring a sense of stability and hope. In these quiet moments of emotional tension, Yuhi learns that helping others also means learning about herself. And every time she stays present during someone's struggle, she grows a little more stronger, steadier, and more confident in her purpose. Yuhi's journey reminds us that meaningful change often begins with the smallest, most sincere actions. By listening, encouraging, and simply being present, she helps the elderly rediscover confidence while rediscovering her own purpose. Her experience teaches that kindness doesn't require perfection-only intention. And when we choose to show up for others, we often end up healing parts of ourselves we didn't realize needed care.